our initial podcast for Cyber Kung Fu.
And, it's an honor to be here, Tom. Thank you very much.
And actually, I'm going to share something with you because, I recently did a Wireshark class, and you gave me your slides. And so I kind of started off with a little bit of Cyber Kung Fu, and I felt a little corny doing it, but the class actually kind of dug it. They kind of get into that whole aspect of it, looking at it, applying the same strategies that one would in self-defense, observation, what's in your environment, what are the dangers, what are the assets, and we just kind of walk through a little bit of what it's like to be a cop out on patrol, in that kind of state of awareness. And so I came up with a certificate. So I think can I share I can share my screen here, right? Yeah.
Well, it's funny as you're doing that. I mean, how many martial art analogies do InfoSec guys make? I mean, there's Cyber Dojo, there's all kinds of ninja.
Hey man, we were the first.
And well, to be fair too, even if we weren't, you're the highest ranking martial artist I know that does this. So it's not just, hey, I thought of an idea for our listeners here. Tom is a 9th degree black belt, and he's been my martial arts coach since, I was trying to think exactly. I think I met you 2 years before I started class. So I think I met you when I was 19. But I didn't start until like 1982. I would have been 21 when I started. So I remember Steve told me about you, and I met you, and I was like, yeah, hard guy from Kensington, But about 2 years later, well, you came to see my band, and you were so nice about that. I was like, dude, you got to give this guy a chance, And you were very cool. You really liked the band. And I remember grappling with you, and I put on some gloves, and I wanted to see how you could fight. You tied me up like a pretzel. I remember, like, very quickly, I was like down on the ground like this, and I was like, all right, let's try this again. Boom, and then I'm just tied up. You didn't hit me or anything. It's just I couldn't get anything off. I was like, all right, I think I found a teacher for a while, until I figured this out. And it's been 40 years later.
So I think you should have this certificate with your name, but acknowledge that Larry Greenblatt is a professor.
Well, thank you very much.
Not only cyber, I would remove the Wireshark from it. Well, honestly, I look to you really for guidance and leadership in the cyber field. As much as I'm your sensei, Sifu in martial arts, you were definitely my sensei.
Well, I appreciate that, but let's be fair to you. You had a computer a couple of years before I did. What did you start? Was it a Radio Shack? What was your first computer?
My ex was a Timex Sinclair.
Timex Sinclair, right? I didn't join you till you got your Commodore 64, and then I got one, and yeah. But you were the first guy hacking, and you were constantly, just grabbing any technologies and playing with them and figuring stuff out. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I probably wrote the first martial art management system, just playing with kind of Sybase, and worked it out, created some forms, actually learned an awful lot, but, people were like, hey, man, why don't you get on the floor, get out of that cave where you got that computer. Yeah.
You also had your Commodore Amiga in the early 80s, and you were doing video editing and stuff. Yeah. No, you're definitely one of the first guys I know who had stuff on computers.
It's great stuff. So, so we have a number of areas to win here that I'm extremely interested in. And I think that we both are on the same page when it comes to the disruptive future that we're moving towards.
Yeah, it's amazing. Peter's got a book coming out. Peter Diamandis has a book coming out. The future is faster than you think. And it's just incredible. It's not just any one technology that's exponentially growing. It's how these technologies help each other. So how AI will augment virtual reality. And so.
Yeah. But, I can see the fear in people's eyes.
Oh, sure. It's a different world.
It's like, why do I have to keep changing my password? Why do they keep doing updates? They change everything. I can't deal with this. So I can see a lot of frustration going on. Then we have the distrust. We have the fake news. And the fact that corporations are running away with our privacy. I kind of stumbled upon this this week. Just doing a little thinking about. I'm always thinking about it, but I wanted to kind of come up with a couple of good subjects. Okay, besides blockchain and AI and VR and AR and which all really exemplary type stuff. The fourth industrial revolution, which as we moved out of using computers, now computers are forcing this state of evolution on us. But I came upon the fifth industrial revolution.
Oh, no, that's a new one on me. So Web 4.0, Internet 4.0.
So the fifth industrial revolution is us getting our ethics and morality straight in terms of using technology for the greatest good. And it always reminds me of your gung-ho mantra. From the blackest hole. From
the Big Bang through the blackest holes, with peace and victory, which is the same sign, right? Peace and victory. I thought that was cute. I made that up, decades ago. Forward every day, and that was a Timothy Leary thing where he felt that the real issues that we mostly face today are navigational. That humanity has lost the map. And when we had a religion, that everybody believed in the culture, he said, no matter what your religion was, if you thought Wotan was the creator, then you know where you're going. You're going to meet Wotan. But as science and things have dismantled a lot of the religious background, a lot of the religious fundamentals for some people, it left an atheist thing that's like, I guess no one did it. We must be going nowhere. And he felt that, no, we need a navigation. He always felt that if there is no God, we have to create one because we need a sense of direction. And he just felt we have one. DNA has a sense of direction. We're going somewhere. We're going to space. I don't know if you saw, Jeff Bezos just gave a talk last week where he showed his vision for space, and it's all based on Jared O'Neill. It's all based on instead of, I've heard him say before, instead of building a colony out on Mars, he said, first, this was the first criticism I heard. He goes, you want to live on Mars? Why don't you try living on Mount Everest for a year and see how that goes and consider that's a lot nicer than Mars. And he said, but the other thing, and I didn't think of this until last week, or that he brought up was a big thing. He goes, you go to Mars and you want to come back to Earth, it's a couple of years. You build a colony in high orbit around the Earth, you can make daily trips. And it's a much better environment, a man-made environment. And it answers a lot. It answers most of our, whether you call it global warming or anything, because long before, the buzz about global warming, we had other environmental issues. I mean, pollution alone. I remember when they released the news story, you probably remember because I was about 10, don't drink rain. You tell your children not to drink rainwater. It's acid rain.
Yeah, acid rain.
And that was scary. And I was like 10 years old. And I remember, what are we doing to the earth? And he felt that we are poisoning the earth mostly due to manufacturing. We move manufacturing to space. We won't have most of these problems.
I think that's the point. And I think the point is that we need to grow in maturity along with our growth in technology.
Yeah.
And that the for-profit mentality has to change. It's not that it won't be profit making.
No, there's billions to be made out there, but that can't be your primary focus.
Primary focus, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's Peter points out there's going to be more wealth in the next 5 years than we had in the last 500 years. That's not going to be the issue. But how do you responsibly deal with that? And I think it goes back to, as any religion does have, and science didn't break this part up, is the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And I think if we bring that back, and people do, I'm not the only one thinking this. As you bring these things back, now you have a religion that won't be challenged by science, that stays in that realm of being data driven. And I think that's what happens with science and how it affected so many other cultures is we still see it. How many people have opinions that are just not data driven? They're just not supported by the data. And we're watching, especially the younger generation, they laugh when they see their parents doing something that has no scientific merit whatsoever.
Well, as you did to your parents.
Sure. But I think it's accelerating even more so because I would see something in the Golden Book Encyclopedia episode, a volume 3 that we had, there were 20 volumes. We only had like 12 of them around. Some of the pages were ripped out. Now the kids just go to Google and they go, no, I'm sorry, that's not right. No, they already disproved that theory years ago. One of my favorites is so funny that so many people still use. There's two that really, they stand out whenever somebody brings it up. One is fight or flee. Scientists don't believe that anymore. It's not fight or flee. If you see a bear, you don't say, do I fight the bear or do I run? No, the immediate reaction to danger for most animals is to freeze. That is by far the overwhelming thing. But you see, and it just brings up the flight or flee. And I go, what about freeze? No, that doesn't. Where did you get that? It's been out since like the last 30 years. Most people accept that.
I'd have to say the flight aspect or the freeze aspect is a form of, is the fear, is the, parasympathetic kicking in.
But it's not data driven. Most reactions to danger, you will fight or flee, but the primary thing is to freeze up. If you saw a bear, would you want to fight it?
No.
No. Would you run from it?
Because I've seen plenty of bears.
But what would you'd probably freeze for a moment. Wait.
No, because I took my cues from the older dudes around me who were like, yeah, just be chill, just chill,
I guess maybe you're missing my point that scientists today don't accept that it's just fight or flee. The other one is left brain, right brain thinking. This has long been data driven since the 80s. I guess that's not true because we can measure different things. So it's not left brain, right brain is a popular thing that spread in the early 70s or so, was disproven later, but most people don't believe that.
Yeah, but I've experienced that. Left brain, right brain.
I'm sure
maybe the way that I am defining it. What else? Because
there's yin and yang.
Because
I'm not saying there is a yin and yang.
Because I've been a physical educator my entire life. And I don't want to kill your theories, but because I've been a physical educator all my life, I've taught many people movement skills. And I find that there are some people that come into movement practice that are have no background. They skipped gym class, they didn't play any sports, and they're very analytical about the way they're perceiving the movement. So that's like, take something like Tai Chi. And every now and then I can see them slip into the other side and actually for a moment just experience that, and then quickly fall back into trying to rationalize and trying to understand it mentally when if they would just relax a bit. Whereas somebody who has a rich movement background,
I'm not challenging that you don't see two different approaches to things. I'm just saying that if you looked at the neurological activity in the brain, it's not being drawn from the left or right side. That's a metaphor.
I got you.
And it has no physiological, scientific, data-driven reason for that. It's a great metaphor. And I do believe that there are people who are more musically, as a teacher, you learn some people are more visual learners, some people are more auditory learners. As a teacher, I see all the time. Most of the time, my students like when I tell stories to bring the thing together. Some people just want facts. And that would be what some people might call the classic left brainer. They just want, just give me analytical facts. I don't need your stories. Where other people, no, I need to put it in context. I need to, and I get something out of it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I could see, certainly many types, but I guess if you were to you just use reduction to say, break them down to two different types, there are those that are Kirk and those are Spock. Some people.
And that's my. Now you just brought my two favorite.
Yeah.
They're not left and right brain, but I do kind of keep them on left and right shoulder.
Well, that's interesting. I did not realize that left and right brain were disproved.
And actually Wilson wrote about it way in the 80s because he felt embarrassed. Robert Anton Wilson.
I can see it pointing back. When people do certain things and they do brain scans, they do see areas warming up. you
Right.
know, becoming
Right.
hotter.
Yeah, and we can see, you know, who's doing some great work there. Somebody to watch out for the future, especially in brain mind interface, you know, brain computer interfaces, BCI, is Mary Lou Jepson. I would love to have her talk in one of these. She's talked at Abundance University and or Singularity University, and she was a person who developed a lot of product for Facebook, for Microsoft. I mean, she ships product. And she's found that watching the blood flow in the brain, and she takes like a, you know, we've all done it. You put a flashlight to your hand and you see the red on the other side. Well, that's the blood that's scattered. And if we can bring that scattering back together and make sense of it, and they've done this and shining light through a brain, and they can see to the point where they can watch what you're dreaming about. You know, the resolution's a little low, but they're getting there, and they're going to be able to not only have you know, replace MRIs, but they'll be able to see what you're thinking. You know, it's amazing.
Channel attack. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's really amazing to what it led me to do is they scanned the brains of jellyfish. And it led me to something I didn't realize, but apparently pretty well established today, is that jellyfish are octopus are extremely smart. Almost to the point where they can't explain it. They go, are they alien creatures? How did that simple creature they will unscrew a lid of a jar, steal food out of it, put the lid back on to make it look like they weren't there. It's just amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Reminds me of the Turing test. The guy said, and we know him, Homer. I think it was Homer. And he said, actually, no, I'm sorry. It was somebody else that we both know. But he said he is not worried about the computer that can pass the Turing test. He's more worried about the one that intentionally fails it.
Oh, my God. Pretty funny. So going back to the fifth industrial, you know, the fifth level. Fifth and there's going to be a 6 and a 7.
Oh, I'm sure. All
right, so here's a quote from it. Okay, our goal is to build a world that democratizes opportunity, where people control their privacy and property, and all people participate in processes that are transparent, trustworthy, and inclusive. Join us.
I like it. I like it. It reminds me of something in Star Trek and this newer series. You know, when I say newer, the Next Generation, there was a Picard reference about, you know, we don't live for money. You know, that's not what we're not profit driven. I forget exactly how it's worded, but how finances change in the Star Trek world.
Right.
And it's back to that, you know, golden rule to me, because saying, hey, I can become a billionaire, but you can starve, just doesn't seem humane. Doesn't seem humane. And as we watch robotic and AIs replace jobs, like if Jeff Bezos, who I'm a big fan of, if he can replace 90% of his workforce with AIs and robots and become 10 times more profitable, does he owe it to society to share the wealth? And I think he does to some degree. That doesn't mean he can't be a trillionaire someday. I have no problem with that. I just want all boats to be lifted. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so I think that's that brings up universal income.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it's something that has to happen. When you hear these people who are like, "Oh, then people are just going to want to sit around and watch TV and do nothing." I don't think people want to sit around and do nothing. There might be some group of people that do that, but I think more people will do things that they love to do that make the world a better place. Things that don't pay well right now, like you and your lovely wife. You take care of stray animals. That doesn't pay well, but it makes the world a better place.
Makes the world a better place. Not only that, I take care of actually a lot of my neighbors. Yeah. For instance, there's a lot of young Hispanic guys in my neighborhood that really don't have skill sets. You know, they can build some stuff, they can mow grass, they can, you know, I've taught one guy how to run cable, how to put in security cameras. And, you know, and when I pick up a job, I just hire them, you know.
That's great.
I give them little stuff to do around the neighborhood. You know, it gives them a little lunch money,
and people want to do stuff. They want to feel useful. To me, I think that's perhaps the most. That's an old Taoist concept that the nature will destroy the useless and protect the useful. And people, I know that when I read that, I was probably all of a teenager starting, at your school, maybe 20 years old. And I was like, then all I want to do is be useful in life. And I think that's the great feeling. In fact, even people who get paid well, when they feel, and I don't even know if my job makes a difference. I mean, I'm making money. They certainly don't feel good about it.
I met a dude, a PhD working at Vanguard, is now working at Coyote Crossing as a host, a waiter. And he said he just got fed up. I think there were probably some other extenuating circumstances like a divorce, loss of house, and blah blah blah. But I said, dude, you were probably making some good money. So yeah, I was, but I was also spending a good bit of money. But I said, are you happy? He said, oh, man, I'm loving it. I love the fact that I've taken, I don't have the pressure that I had before. So I'm sure many people, do that, I smart to back off from killing themselves prematurely.
And those are the jobs I want an AI to do. I want a robot to do those things.
Yeah.
You said, I don't feel like changing a password earlier. I don't feel like scrubbing my toilet either. And if I could have an AI do that, that frees up some time for me.
Well, not only that, it's apparent to me. I mean, we hear a lot in certainly the political realm about bringing manufacturing back to the United States. Well, not in the way it was.
I know. They just set up a robotic factory that's
but you do see the trend happening. You see a number of businesses that have actually brought themselves back from Asia and Europe and South America, who have at least 50% roboticized their I guess
their entire infrastructure, their workforce,
and at the same time have are maybe not employing as many people, but certainly the people that they are employing are making more because their skill sets, their knowledge needs to be higher. So I think that's going to be the trend, and not that there's any bright thinking. Maybe it is thinking on a political level, but there are some smart people out there. I'm really impressed with this whole World Economic Council in terms of what is going on globally and what people are thinking in terms of easing the use of resources, making sustainability a overall goal, and equality. And I'm all for it.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of Dr. Kai-Fu Lee, who says, as we're watching these AIs take over and robotics take over and just projecting what are the jobs that humans can do that AIs likely won't do well for at least a foreseeable future. And he gravitates toward what he says, compassion and creative-based jobs. That, as we said, taking care of animals, or you said even mentoring other people in the area, or what about taking care of elderly, taking care of children. These are jobs that are probably better served by humans, and they don't pay well right now. But if we have UBI, universal basic income, then people will be more driven to do that, and we become a more compassionate society. And then creativity, Leary argued for years, you couldn't have the high art that we got from whether it's ancient China or the Egyptians, the Romans, the Renaissance period, if you didn't have what he called the leisure class, a class of people that didn't have to work. They had leisure time. And when you have leisure time, then you can, paint the Sistine Chapel or create a statue. When you're, bogged down, I'd love to create that statue, but right now I've got this bear to fight off. I've got some fish I've got to catch. I've got to, it's different. I've got to run from this bear maybe.
Yeah. Well, I guess, but it's also the artistic element, so you've always had an artistic class. A group that are driven to do a sculpture, painting.
Yeah, but it took a more complex society. So when you only have 5 or 6 people in a band of humans running around, and one guy says, "Hey, I'm just going to whittle this piece of wood that I found with my arrowhead that it took so long to make. I'm going to make a little statue." Or like, come on, you help us. we're in the middle of something, so you didn't have that time. When you had 100, when you have 1,000 people in a society, then if a guy says, and I'm going to spend my day whittling wood, you go, you do that. I'll go out and I'll do the fishing.
Somebody made that Venus of Willendorf, you know?
Yeah. Oh,
You know,
that's
I mean,
amazing. There's a great Netflix thing on society and civilization, and it's all art driven. And most of the arts were driven by some type of religion. And it, you know, it starts off matriarchal. It's like this great female goddess, and they carve out a wooden thing of a woman, and that's beautiful, you know.
Was it just a toy? You know, I gotta keep my kids busy. I'll make a little doll here. You know, you could dress up or whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, these are artifacts.
You know, it's a look. You're driven to do music. I'm driven to do movement.
Yeah.
And it's just an innate expression. You know,
I still do my movement too, though. Whether it's just dancing around when I'm playing my old stuff, or I told you starting 2 months ago, I got back to your top Tai Chi form of 108, and I've been doing it every day. I skipped one day, but that's it. So, and it's funny. It's every time you do it, something occurs. You go, oh, you know, it's just wonderful. You know, whether it's just like a foot placement, a knee placement, you know, a breath that you took at the right moment. You know, you just go, there's something.
So, who's talking then? So, who's picking these things out? I mean, because it's a deep form of meditation. You know, and although I may start out with an intent, say I'm gonna, you know, just study my breathing. At some point, feeling the bottom of my foot. At some point, a thought will pop up. Say, geez, you know, I really haven't talked to Jeff Dion for weeks. I say, what's going on? So, you know, there's this kind of tap in at some point to, again, this universal consciousness, you know, this, and you at some point will make that kind of sync, you know, where you lose your individual self and you merge with the universe.
And you know, I don't know is my first answer, but you know, it's funny. Quantum mechanics used to be something that, in fact, you turned me on to that, bringing it back. Many years ago, I read the Tao of Physics, and I guess that kind of, and I told you about it. You had me read the Dancing Woolly Masters.
Yeah.
And this was fun stuff to talk about, you know, after class, but it was never anything that mattered for work. Now with quantum computing and quantum encryption, these are things I have to study for work. And there's the theory of entanglement. So entanglement says that if any two particles ever touch each other, they remain connected at some faster than light thing. So a very simple explanation or idea would be if two photons touched each other halfway between Earth and Alpha Centauri, which is 4 light years away. If I were to shine a laser, it would take 4 years before it would get to Alpha Centauri. But if they touch each other halfway, and one goes to Alpha Centauri and one goes to Earth, and I polarize this, measuring the spin of the electron, or whatever photon, the other one will also polarize at that same moment, not 4 years later. So this suggests. Yeah. So Wilson, way back in the 80s, in his book, Quantum Psychology, said if that's the theory, the reason they are connected is because they once touched each other. Couldn't you argue that at the Big Bang, everything in the universe touched itself? So therefore, the entire universe is entangled. So is that consciousness? Is that why consciousness is universal? Is because, yeah, we're all touched on that network. And that's a wonderful idea. I love that concept. It's actually leading me down to what I've been working on the last couple of weeks, because I forget how to spell his name. I just pronounce his name Michio Kaku, a Japanese physicist. Fantastic. He just gave a talk at Google last week. And he talked about the problem of quantum computing, like Kurzweil. He doesn't think we're close yet because of if these two photons touch each other, they're entangled, but then it touches something else. Is it still entangled with the first one? Well, it is, but not as much. It is it's less coherent. And decohesion is the challenge, that we get errors. And he used an example of like, all right, the register's holding a value. Somebody sneezes in the other room, it changes the value because you're entangled. And that's why, they have to be so isolated and shielded. But just getting back to your thing, what is that consciousness? What is that universal consciousness?
I don't know. Are you saying that the universe touches itself?
Well, in a way that's appropriate touching.
Appropriate touching.
Yeah, I didn't say it. Can you show me where on the universe, little boy, the other photon touched you? Just point. Yeah.
Okay. So how do you think that we're actually going to make that bridge from everybody's in it for themselves to equality and an ethical world? Where
that's a great question.
We're not monetizing everybody's data.
How do you force that to happen?
Obviously, that's the game today.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a woman that I'm trying to have her speak at my June class. I met recently, and I forget her last name. It's Gita something, but she talks about how AI will do that for us. That AI and decentralized blockchain, as well as like public shaming of Facebook and Google for losing so much data, for abusing so much data. Will drive a more decentralized, a private. Like a lot of people say privacy is going away. She feels no, it's not. In fact, if anything, we're seeing how that's more fair, and AIs will protect that. So I don't know. I think it's a great question. I think one thing that drives me that you don't like to think about, it's not comfortable, but Leary pointed out, and I think he borrowed it from Alan Harrington on the selfish gene, about the psychology or whatever of DNA's choices. And he said that a species will coast along serene stupidity until faced with an evolutionary challenge. Get smart very fast or die.
Yeah.
So when we have these existential threats, whether it's global warming or war or whatever, that
resource depletion,
that's saying, hey, either you change. I mean, we don't have the ways to feed our population anymore. We better 3D print food soon, because we're not going to be growing cows, and killing off cows for the next 20, 30 years. That's just not going to work. It doesn't appear that way. So I think when you're forced to change, when evolution says, hey, it's not like, do you want to be a tadpole or do you want to be a frog? It's, hey, you better become a frog or you're going to die, because it's not a choice. Evolution doesn't give tadpoles that choice. It's not stay a caterpillar where it's comfortable down here, or would you rather be a butterfly? It's become butterfly or die. So maybe that
was David Carradine's approach to use of petroleum, fuel oils and so on. Use it all up, because when you use it all up, you're going to be forced to come up with a better solution.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that left him all tied up.
Oh. All right. For anybody who didn't get that, look up David Carradine's and how he passed.
Yeah.
There's an old saying that the Stone Age didn't end for lack of stones. We're not going to. I don't know that we're going to end the oil age for lack of oil, but I understand the basic concept there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think probably we'll move beyond it soon enough. And it's not so. I think it's more the case of the carbon dioxide and just the pollution.
It's also, a financial
depletion of oils.
So they've done these studies, and talk about the bringing manufacturing and stuff back to the country, and some of these non-data driven opinions. Our president mentioned he's going to bring back clean coal, whatever that means. Bring back coal.
No, it wasn't even clean coal. It was like bring back the coal industry and minimize the use of clean coal.
But the cost of maintaining that coal plant, as opposed to the cost of building a brand new solar plant, is actually higher. So it's data driven. It's just a financial decision.
Have you seen any coal miners go back to work? You know,
they don't
that
want
one
those
working
jobs.
already.
If
Yeah,
you told a coal guy, hey, you don't have to go back to the mines, you could sit behind a desk and gets work from home
yeah,
and do this, and eventually you could just get UBI because a robot will do your old job.
yeah.
Whatever. And I think they'd much rather have that new thing. I don't think they want to be in the coal mines. The quality of work is just not that great. The quality of life in that job.
Right.
So I think it's going to be it's going to be a lot of the market will push it. But as you said, when you have selfish who owns your data and whether it's just Facebook, two things I think that we get out of what happened with Facebook recently in our data. One is that they were selling it, that's our private or what, not necessarily private, but we thought with personal data, and they're selling it out for other reasons. The other thing, though, is that they themselves weren't even encrypting their passwords properly. They weren't even encrypting their passwords.
Right.
So they're abusing our data by not handling it properly. It's like not washing their hands before they cook the food. And then they're intentionally letting other people buy some of our food or bite into our food. So, and I think that market, people are going to say, hey, if there's a better alternative, I'm going to leave you, Facebook.
Hey, certainly I think, it could be very much the demise of Facebook. Something could replace Facebook as fast as
easy.
Facebook came online. If you just took a checklist, in terms of care for profit, care for our customers, you would have to say that you got more red checks on the care for profit than you really do care about our clientele and making social media
and use the term sustainable. That's probably because caring for profits is okay for one season, so to speak, but 80% of your business in the old Pareto rule will come from return customers, and they're not going to return if you don't care for them.
Yeah, it seems to be a trend, at this point, that people are opting out, for that.
And somebody's going to come up with a Facebook in virtual reality. I'm sure Facebook is trying to be that one with their Oculus and stuff. But that's going to overtake the way, we don't see CDs, music, it's going to totally supplant. I don't care if you're the best CD producer in the world. You're not doing a lot of business anymore because people are just downloading MP3s or something.
Well, let's talk a bit about VR and AR. What do you see the prospects of it? What are the benefits, to come that I'm not aware of, and that anybody listening to this isn't aware of?
Okay, that's two separate rules. You're aware of a lot of stuff that I talk about. So, one of my favorite, because I guess I'm subjectively lean that way, I teach for a living for the most part. And when we take a live class and we move it to, say, a Zoom like this environment, some of the things are lost. Some of the real world stuff, it's, you gain a few things. You can type in your name, but for the most part, it's that reality minus some things. And VR was different when they did these studies where when you took a live class, but you put it in virtual reality, not only didn't it lose much, but it added so much more. So they took a class of children learning about Egyptology. And in a live class, they got to watch the teacher lecture. In a VR class, they got to tour a tomb. And that made not only the A students, they stayed A, but you had D students that were not engaged in a live class that became very engaged and also became A students. So it's a better platform for education than live education. So me as an educator, I've already got my Quest on pre-order. It's coming out supposedly the next week. I'm going to have my Oculus Quest. I'm working very closely with Rumi, and you met Chance Glasgow from Rumi, which is interesting. I don't know if you noticed that Philip Rosedale, who started Second Life and then now High Fidelity, which was like, Rumi on steroids, lost a lot of money, laid off a lot of his people, and is basically going after what Rumi's going for. A Zoom, a virtual reality, virtual office. So Rumi's really in the right place. So I'm working close with them, and I want to do my classes there. But I could see where we're going to get, most of our entertainment, most of our business interactions will be in virtual reality. And that's going to change a lot. I have a place out here. My studio is out in the country. Very cheap real estate because the jobs are, an hour and a half away in Philadelphia. But when the jobs can be anywhere, your high price real estate is going to change. You know, New York won't be worth as much, the real estate, but you know, Boise, Idaho might go up, you know, or anywhere out in North Dakota, you know, wherever.
I'm sure. I mean, it's going to be it'll be a change before New York becomes a ghost town.
Oh, I'm not saying a ghost town. I'm just saying the profit of charging so much for a little room that 5 people share will go down. You know, oh no, New York for back to entertainment. You know, it's still, there's something exciting about being around a lot of people. There's something exciting. You've done work in New York, I know. And
true.
When you go out at 2 o'clock in the morning and the place is still buzzing.
Yeah. There's nothing quite like it.
You may still have virtual versions of that. You might be able to put on your goggles and be at the heart of Shanghai or whatever, and experience that thing without worrying about getting home, without worrying about being attacked. Like, you know, it's back to the schools. I think so much of our problems, whether it's, you know, these school shootings, it's horrible, is that we're forcing people to be together. People who don't necessarily get along, they don't share anything other than a zip code. But when they could be in virtual reality, they can share if they want to, but they don't have to deal with that annoying student or violent student, you know. And I think it would hurt from both ends. The people who turn violent generally were going through issues ahead of time, so they'll hopefully have less likely to be to snap that way and want to do harm like that. But also, if somebody does, the radius, you know, that they can do that damage in would be far less. They could hurt they could rip out the headgear in the room. They could break the TV.
Yeah, but that kind of brings up another area, socially. Why do we have these shootings? Why, you know, in the last 5 years?
I'll go back to, you know, the overall thing to me, Timothy Leary's thing about loss of direction. I think when you have a culture where it's one religion, no matter what it is, if they all believe it, they'll all believe that, no, I'll be punished if I do something like that. It's not right, you know. But if everybody's lost their faith in their version of the religion, if they think their parents are you know, just prehistoric in their beliefs, and then they're forced to be, back to what I said, they're forced to be with people that they didn't naturally get along with. They have completely different. They just were forced there, and I think that frustration just builds. So I think it's a twofold thing. You have to attack their internals by letting them know, no, there still is a reason to respect everybody. We are going somewhere. There is a reason for the universe. And then the externally is that, and if you do lose it, you can't do this type of damage, you know, because you're going to be in a room, you know, you'll be at home. You're not going to be in a building with thousands of people potentially. So I think it'll help you too.
You know, I guess my question is, what really tricks off somebody?
I think it's socially awkward. Yeah, I believe so.
But it seems that lately the shooters are just normal people. You know, it's like, you know, in the beginning, you have all this guy would really have problems, or you know, made a lot of noise.
You know, what's normal?
You know,
and that
it's, you know, it's really, I don't expect it from that person at all. You know,
normal is, Wilson would always point out, normalcy is a mathematical statistic. So the average person.
Yeah, okay, well, they weren't quite outliers, you know.
Right, I got you.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go back to that. We're going through a lot of changes faster than any time in history, and the only answer, you know, beyond that is that it's going to move faster, and that shakes up people's sense of, where am I? What's the point of it all? And it used to be that you could have guidance from your great, you know, if you should have a grandfather or whatever, grandmother, they could say, look, we went through this when I was younger. Here's the answer. But nobody's going through it.
Can say that. Yeah.
No, these are new things.
Yeah.
So you need some sense of everything's okay. And Leary used to say, I'll bet you that things happen like this on planets like this all over the universe, that this is a very common thing, that, you know, there's a star forms.
Well, you can speculate that.
You speculate, but he felt that, you know, it's just all the changes. One of the things I love is like, where does, you mentioned consciousness, where does so much of this information come from? Does a B, get an idea. Hey, I think I'll build a hive. Or does it's just built into his DNA, and this is a plan for you. You're going to build hives. And humans, do we say, hey, I think it'd be a neat idea to build a rocket to Mars? Or is like DNA says, no, that's what your job is. That's why I created a human, so you could build rockets to Mars. I build termites to help regulate, the oxygen, nitrogen, and the thing. I build humans to build colonies in space to get us off the planet. That's just how it goes. So, maybe that's part of it is to teach people that everything's okay. Everything's going according to plan, and that plan is genetic, and DNA makes most of the calls.
Now, what if the plan was to prepare people for this kind of chaos? Whereas you do find that even a school kid now has a disaster recovery plan. They say, should a shooter come in, I'm going to hide here. This is my way out. Now everybody's kind of going through forms of training, and is that part of the DNA?
Yeah, it may very well be. I suspect that if it's ever happened, then that was somehow accounted for, at some point. Does that mean we're guaranteed to get off the planet and everything's going okay? I don't know. I'm sure that there are dandelion seeds that land in fertile areas and they can grow dandelions. And then there's some that just don't land in a fertile area and they don't get to grow that. So is the planet Earth in the current state to the point where we're going to be able to continue to mature as the DNA template allows? Or are the conditions just not good enough and we won't make it? I can't make that promise.
It's the little trees. So,
I
the storm comes and blows everything away. It's the little trees that grow. The little trees. I saw it in a movie last night, so I thought
that came from something. What? Explain it further. What is it?
Well, after a hurricane, comes and blows all the big trees down and just wipes everything out. It's the little trees that remain. Okay? And naturally will grow and
I see. So it's the big dinosaurs that they get wiped out. Yeah. And maybe that to be true in our social structures. It's the Facebooks and the Googles that might get wiped out. Who knows?
Well, let's face it. We're headed for certainly a series of dichotomies where there are those that want to see technology and AI and the disruption come and take advantage of it. And there's those that don't want anything to do with it whatsoever and will be more kind of hippie life, want to live off the land and just drop out. And I think that's just a force to reckon with.
Yeah, but I think almost everything brings me back to Timothy Leary, which, by the way, you are the person that when I first walked into your school and I told you about an experience I had, you said, oh, this is a book for you. And you gave me Timothy Leary's Exopsychology, which was all about moving to space. And his theory of evolution.
All about moving to space.
Well, it's all about his theory of evolution.
How to prepare your consciousness for that move from a terrestrial-based thought process to a post-terrestrial.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
and you could see that happening then with kids playing video games. I mean, we've come up with technology to move ourselves away from being so.
Well, that's what spurred them on.
So based on that, and I think the same thing holds true with all the mediums that we have, and martial arts is one of them. And martial arts helps you develop that base chakra, that base level of security and protecting my household. But it's supposed to be a launching pad for self-actualization.
Sure. It helps take care of those lower Maslow's needs.
Right.
So you can
but if you look at our dilemmas today, politically, we're dealing really with religion. We're dealing with
A good deal of it. A good deal. And it's the fact that these religions are not data driven. So what falls under religion isn't religion. Religion by definition is to re-league, is one. And when a religion says these are the bad people, then you're not re-leaguing. They're de-leaguing people. And these people don't count, and if you get, now we just saw in Alabama, if you get an abortion, even in the case of incest or rape, you still have to have the baby. And if you get the abortion, you could be punished with something like 10 years in jail. Horrible.
And if
absolutely
you perform the abortion.
And even the doctor. So both the doctor gets punished and the woman who gets the abortion.
Yeah,
and somebody pointed out that these were like 25 men made this decision. So they want 25 women to outlaw vasectomy. They said, you can't get a vasectomy without consulting us. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to stay away from political opinions, but certainly there's some antiquated.
Well, I want to get back to the thing you said about the hippie just drop out of it. And one of the things that Leary pointed out in that book, he was so famous for making the phrase, turn on, tune in, and drop out. And he said, I didn't mean drop out forever. I meant for the weekend. He said, I didn't expect you to just go back and live off the land and return to caveman days. He said, no. And he said, it dropped back in with so he wanted to change it as he got older from turn on, tune in, and boot up.
Boot up. Yeah. I like that.
So he wrote that book. He was inspired while in jail that he had heard that he said two acid heads, Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, created the personal computer. And he said, and this is like the Gutenberg moment. This is now I don't have to go to church to find out what the Bible says, because only the monks spoke machine language. I can have my own personal computer and I can see how the brain works. And so, yes, there is a thing where people learn so much and they want to drop out from society. But
it's the closest thing to Akashic consciousness we have. And the next thing will be a computer that actually taps into the entire database of history.
You guess who I met on Facebook, speaking of the Akashic?
I give up.
And Terry O'Reilly, who wrote the Akashic record player.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
He posted something on the Timothy Leary website or Facebook page. Angel Tech. And I wrote him how that was one of my favorite books ever. And he said, oh, thank you so much. And I actually said, I read 3 of your works. It was the Akashic record player. And I forget what the third one was now.
I've only read Angel Tech, and I only read Angel Tech because I hadn't seen you for a couple of years, and I bumped into you in town, and you said, oh, man, I'm reading Angel Tech, and I'm going to start a Tai Chi class somewhere, blah, 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 blah. And you were like ramped up about it. So I just walked down the street into the bookstore and went and bought a copy. I went, yeah. I could see,
and where we had our differences, me and Ali, was he said, he basically does Timothy Leary's exopsychology, but he looks at it, he goes into a different part of it, and how to build on each of these levels. But he ignored the space. He felt, well, no, space is just a metaphor. And I was like, no, it's not. No, Leary didn't mean it as a metaphor. He meant literally moving off of the earth, not just mentally. And so that's where we had a big separation. And I'm not nearly as famous as he is. Yeah, he certainly made a lot more money on his book.
I gotta say it's both. Because you really have to let go of these terrestrial holdings, which has to do with religion and politics and so on, and move to this kind of post-terrestrial thought process in order to be able to deal with technology. Because technology is throwing us into a digital space that is comparable to actually a physical outer space.
And I agree. I totally agree.
And they go together. So
they go together, and that's why I don't think we want to wipe out the religion. We want to update them and make them relativistic.
What you've done today is actually brought together this kind of stuff that we've been dealing with for 30 years, really.
40
exopsychology, and its relationship to like Abundance Digital, its relationship to the fourth.
And I've told you before, actually, we're coming toward the end here, but that's really what got me into Peter Diamandis. So in exopsychology, Leary has this acronym, SMILE, SMI2LE, and it stood for space migration, life extension, but it could be intelligence increase, and the intelligence would be increased I square exponentially, and life extension. And here in January of 2017, Peter Diamandis does a talk at TED Talk, and I had known him from the exponential processing doubling that Kurzweil brings up, and the two of them started Singularity University, so I know his name, watch him. And he talks about how he owns a space development company, that he started Singularity University to deal with the exponential increase in intelligence, and that he also owns Cellularity and another life extension company. I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is living to the thing. That's it. You just made a friend for life. And I joined his Abundance Digital Group, and it's a great investment, and I love dealing with these people.
By the way, I downloaded my app last night, and so I an official.
Oh yeah, please. Did you created your little profile there? Because I want to introduce you to the group.
Well, I think I created a profile already initially, but I just didn't have the app.
Okay. I think there might be a separation between the two profiles. The app might have a separate profile. Yeah, and you can set up your graphic for your face and everything like that. So I would have and hopefully get people from the group to join us here.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so we're pretty much at the top of the hour, huh?
Yeah, we got like 5 more minutes. Close up here.
That's pretty cool. I feel actually this was pretty productive. Pretty satisfying to tie the old and the new together.
And that's always what it's been. You know, there's a concept in the tarot, and that was one of, I think you were also one of the first people I know to do tarot decks.
Oh, the Hierophant. My favorite card in the tarot, is the Tower.
The Tower.
Remember, the Tower, because the Tower represents disruption.
Sure does. Yeah.
So a failure of the ego, whatever. I mean, and each card has a positive, negative connotation. But I remember learning back years back with my friend Paul Sprang, who was like a master of the tarot.
I remember Paul.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many different ones. I like the ones from the Golden Dawn and from Crowley, Aleister Crowley, where they're more balanced. You don't have like the court cards are not 3 males and a female, or 2 males and a female. It's 2 females and 2 males, and I thought that was a more balanced deck. But the role that I like is the Hierophant. The Hierophant's job is to apply the wisdom of the ancient ways to the coming ways and see how that applies. Their job is basically integrating the future in a context where the past makes sense. So it's well rooted.
But are the Hierophants actually doing that?
Well, that's what a true Hierophant does, and I like to believe that's my job. That's what we're doing.
So that's supposed to be the role of religion.
And in many ways, it really should.
And it's representative. The Hierophant's representative of religion.
Yeah, in fact, some cards he's called the Pope.
The priest, the Pope. Yeah, of course. Or the entire papal. And we see the ludicrousness of whether it's, we could look at the Pope, we could look at and so many other religions like that, but that certainly being a big target is number one, that it's ludicrous. Well, so these frustrated children who go shoot up schools, they go, what does anything mean anymore? But as this to me is what we're doing here in Cyber Kung Fu is actually trying to take in an Einsteinian way, The evolution of the Hierophant is in the Crowley deck is art. Yeah.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Sure. Then what you do is you take the metaphors of the past or whatever, and you create some art that for just some reason, and here's one of those universal consciousness things. Why is it that you could take the same songwriter, and one song he creates is great, and the other one just doesn't catch on? Because something's inspired. Something I know when I write a song that I really love, it just feels like I was the channel. God just said, grab a pen and you write it down. And I'm writing it down, as opposed to I have an idea for a song. This will sell. You know,
Yeah,
I'll use some of the cool words the kids love
sure,
today.
man, for
Yeah.
sure. It's like the Course in Miracles, you know. The Course in Miracles was written by a Harvard professor who said, "I don't know, I picked up the pen and I was just told to write."
Even Crowley's most famous, one of my favorite Crowley books anyway, The Book of the Law, Liber Legis, he claims was channeled to him by some ancient, now he was a great trickster. I don't know what he really did, but it's a fantastic book, you know. But he said it was channeled to him by some Egyptian spirit, you know. He even claims that it was dictated by his wife, who was not a believer in these things. In their honeymoon, she just said, you know, write this down.
Well, so, you know, from what I gathered in just researching the tarot, was that it actually is an Egyptian concept, and that there were actually stations that the neophyte or the initiate went through. You know, and you know, each one certainly represents a particular
An archetype. You know, and that's what Leary or even
Campbell.
Oh, no, who's the great psychologist? Carl Jung.
Carl Jung. Oh yeah.
These are just archetypes that would be representative of any human consciousness, you know, and we could all identify with these things.
Larry, that's what I was hoping we could do. That we could kind of spin these old systems into these new systems, and actually,
sure. You know, as we're coming up, as a
one and one makes three. You know.
As we're closing up here, one of the things I love about my job is dealing with crypto and how it applies to wisdom and stuff. And one of the most important concepts in encryption is a random number generator. And in the I was reading something recently. You know, it's been out for years, the trusted computing platform, but I didn't realize how much it's grown, and it's built into every machine now. And one of the things it does is it's supposedly a true random number generator. And the way they argue as the difference between a pseudo-random, a software-generated thing is considered pseudo-random. But flipping a coin, a physical thing, is considered true random number generator. Well, whether it's the tarot deck or the Yi Jing, right? These are random number generators. These are ancient, you know, things that realize the value of a random number generator. And what they would do is generate some random and then apply meaning. Why did that random take place? What can we get out of that? And by taking all of the archetypes together, you know, whatever, and all of these things deal with archetypes, you know, whether it's the I Ching, and Leary did a great job in The Game of Life, where he tied together the zodiac, the periodic table of elements, you know, the tarot deck,
the 23 strands of
DNA.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And he correlated them all and came up with this thing of how all these games permeate our society, and they're all based on random number generators and how we get order out of chaos. So that's what it's all about, making order out of this chaos.
Making order out of chaos. I like
it. You know, there's a very basic thing in physics. So here's the great thing to close up on. In physics, they talk about entropy, that things will, you know, through time, they're just going to dissolve into chaos. That's just the nature of things. But that's not true. Anywhere there's life, anytime you see that this just got more complex, now it's a 2-celled animal, now it's a 100-celled animal, then it must be life. Where did that come from? And to me, that's life is the creation of order out of chaos. Whenever you see order created, there must have been a live thing. And that's Alexa telling me it's time. Alexa, stop. So I got to break and get started for a class.
Yeah. All right. Hey, it's been great. It's been an awesome experience, and I'm just like charged to do more.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. All right. Take care.